Hi everybody, welcome to day 8 of my 30-day video series. This is the part that I have going so far of the geodesic snub dodecahedron that I'm basing the sculpture on. I say basing because if you look at the actual solid, you will see that my beadwork looks very different from that. I have learned along the way to just allow my medium to transform the objects as in whatever it wants to go. And this is what I've sort of hit upon, this kind of undulating triangular form that is its own thing, that I find has its own beauty. As you can see here, it's kind of collapsed in on itself. Some of the images I have shown on my Instagram, you see that it's standing up very well and it's looking like it has its own structure, as I always talk about. As I continued, the weight of the beadwork started to really show, and it started to just collapse in on itself, which is not what I was going for. I have mentioned my previous sculpture, The Void, where it really holds its shape very well, and this is kind of what I was going for. This is also a snub dodecahedron that I've left partially incomplete, just for my own expressive reasons. But the point is that the shape is pretty nice, structurally solid. That is not happening here. It seemed to be that way when I finished the very first pentagonal corner, but as I've added more and more and more, it is losing its rigidity from the weight of the beads. As you can imagine, it's pretty heavy right now. I thought about this, like, should I just give up and start over? What am I to do? But in my experience, I'm decided to just go with what I have and to see how it ends up. I am pleased when I turn it over on the other side. You can see that the corners here, the pentagon, still are holding themselves up, are still keeping their shape. Oh, it's so heavy. Let me just pull these out. It really has a height. It's really kept its form somewhat, so it's not going to be the sort of hemispherical perfect bowl that that I was going for initially. It's going to be something else. I do not know how it's going to look, and that's kind of part of the process I have learned to accept. I am continuing with this sculpture as it is, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I sort of fixed this thread guides. I did this during the early days of COVID, I think back in March or April. Unfortunately, my baby got to it and pulled the thread out. So I hope you can see at least 3 sides of the original pentagonal shape that I made here, which is 1, 2, 3, and then 4 going up this way, and 5. So that is sort of the central place of where I keep track of my work, and then I'm adding more pentagonal corners around that main pentagon in the center. It's really a pentagon that is this size with the triangles around it, but it forms a larger pentagon, and I keep track of it mentally that way. This is going to be the pentagon at the base. So I'm just going to talk quickly here about the shape itself. It's a snub dodecahedron, which is an Archimedean solid. So the dodecahedron, I actually have a beaded example here against the white background, and I'll show you a more clear image. It is made of 12 pentagons. The way to think of the snub dodecahedron is to take the pentagons of the dodecahedron, and if you imagine them exploding, the shape exploding out, that is the pentagons sort of pulling away from each other and then turning, you'll sort of get the idea of the snub dodecahedron, and that space is then filled with equilateral triangles between the pentagons. So I really use the pentagons to help guide me along as I'm working on this solid. I just really want to learn about these solids, understand them in a three-dimensional way. I not in a sort of pure mathematical number way, like, you know, it has X amount of faces and X amount of vertices and X amount of angles, and it's more, I just really like them as three-dimensional objects. And I find I'm a visual tactile person. The numbers kind of just sort of wash through my brain sort of meaninglessly. I understand it more by working with the shape in the 3D. So getting back to the shape, I have attached 4 so just to be clear again, just like the dodecahedron has 12 pentagons, the snub dodecahedron has 12 pentagons with these equilateral triangles sort of filling that space between the pentagons. And so that's why I start with the pentagons and making that, and then work my way out, because that's how I understand the shape. And so I have here, I started with this pentagon. I imagine it as the base of the dodecahedron, the bottom pentagon, and what I was intending was to sort of have at least a hemisphere. So the 1 pentagon, the base, plus 5 pentagons around that central one, and to see what would happen. So far I have the 1 plus 3, so that's 4, and so the goal is to have 6. So I have this one and one more to make. This video series is essentially documenting this one and attaching it to the sculpture, which I think is enough. to get an understanding of what I'm doing. So here you can see, so I hope that helps you understand what the hell is going on here. I have, okay, I have this is sort of my base here, and I have one, you can't see my hand, 1, 2, 3 pentagonal corners around it, and now I'm going to add the fourth one, which will go here in this sort of nook you see there. I'm going to add, that is where this edge of the pentagon is going to go. And my goal is to have that hemisphere of the snub dodecahedron, and to see if when I get all of the 5 around the central one, if that helps the shape sort of hold up a bit. And if not, then it doesn't. It's not completely floppy. It has, the pentagons really hold their corners very well, and visually it's still very interesting to me as an art piece. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on attaching these sides.